Welcome to episode 3 of the World Building Challenge. Today I'll be designing one of the main party members and going over some lore. Without further ado, on with the show. If one were to look at the early life of N.E.R.D, one would easily assume that he was set up for an easy life. Being born the crown prince of Rave and heir to its throne, along with being one of the most intelligent people in the land in terms of both academia and tactical prowess, one would assume he was predestined to live a life of glory. This was not the case. For years, the kingdom of Rave had been constantly attacked by the undead forces of the Dark Lord Skoldamore. For the most part, though, these attacks had been small-scale and harmless, as Lord Skoldamore was, let us just say, far from an intimidating threat. However, this all changed one fateful day when Skoldamore cast a curse upon the kingdom of Rave, declaring that the kingdom would have no heir. This was a fairly generic curse that no one took too seriously, both because of Skoldamore's reputation, as well as the fact that the current monarchs already had 3 sons. However, this curse would soon be taken seriously one day, as an attack came from Skoldamore's forces, this time not led by Skoldamore, but by his queen, Lady Deathblade. The attack was devastating, wiped out nearly all of the kingdom's forces. All, except for N.E.R.D. Realizing the stakes of his situation, Draken decided to use an ability that he had long kept hidden. He was a monster morph. Monster morphs are those who, from birth, have the ability to transform into a certain fantastical creature. The type of creature varies from monster morph, being anything as weak as an escargoul to as powerful as a dragon. These monster morphs often keep their abilities hidden, as they do not often have the best reputation among people. People often despise monster morphs, viewing them as inhuman and even demonic threats to society. It also did not help that monster morphs could not always keep control of their forms, with certain triggers causing them to transform against their will and lash out, with cases such as these often ending in one dead monster morph. However, given that his kingdom was at risk, Draken decided to finally reveal his monster form, which is a mighty jade-scaled dragon, a species of dragon well known for their near-impenetrable scales and devastating green fire. Using his form, he was able to easily defeat the invaders and save his kingdom. One would expect him to be given a hero's welcome, but one would be gravely mistaken. As the people of Rave did not want a monster morph to be sitting on the throne, they began attacking Draken, trying to force him to leave. Much to his family's dismay, he eventually did, abdicating the throne and leaving the kingdom. However, he soon found a new, peaceful life elsewhere. Draken started an elite group where monster morphs and others could use their abilities to help protect the people of Rave from the many monsters that inhabited the kingdom. This group was known as the Dragon Keepers. He even set up an island off the coast of Rave called the Isle of the Draconic, which served both as a base of operations for the Dragon Keepers and allowed them to keep dragons who would otherwise be a danger to themselves and others safe. Draken's life was good. That was, until one of his brothers showed up on the island. So, where do I start with this one? First, I should get the obvious out of the way. Those who have followed this channel for a while will know that N.E.R.D is not a new character. Currently, he is the narrator for my Dragon series, which for now I will say is loosely canon to this universe. Some might say reusing this character is cheating, but this has been the plan for a while, and besides, I enjoyed this concept too much to let it go to waste. But what are those concepts, you ask? Basically, as I've mentioned before, the premise of this entire universe is that it is very satirical, both satirizing the fantasy genre as a whole, as well as real life. So first, let's talk about what role Draken will play in the story. In many stories, especially in fantasy, there's this concept known as the five-man band. This is a classic structure for party balance in a story, with the roles generally being leader, lancer, heart, big guy, and smart guy. And occasionally you'll have a 6th or 7th member with 6 rangers, healers, mentors, and others. But these 5 are the key consistent ones. I won't be using this structure exactly. However, Draken does fill the role of the smart guy, or as it's commonly referred to in fantasy media, the Mage. This role is exactly what it sounds like. If the party has a situation that they can't just punch their way out of, this is the guy to solve it. In this case, the world of Rave functioned mostly on fantasy trope logic. Draken is very aware of these tropes, and often exploits them to get his teams out of situations. However, there's also another role that this guy plays. Basically, if you ever played D&D, you'll know that your party will inevitably get distracted and go on numerous side quests, and there will always be that one guy trying his very best to keep the party on track. Draken is this guy. Now I shall get into the other point of inspiration. As I mentioned, part of the series is going to be satirical views of our real world, and an issue that I have personally faced in this world is that of ableism, specifically in the realm of autism. Yes, I'm talking about autism again, check it off your bingo cards. Monster morphs in this story are mostly an allegory for autistics and the issues they face in society, with a degree of fantasy and humor thrown in. If you couldn't tell, this is probably the character that I put the most thought into. Anyway, here's the final dragon design. If you have any other ideas for the fantasy realm, comment them below. But until then, goodbye, and I will remember you all in therapy.